Bart, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I have one comment on this because I'm questioned. We all know the case of Avexis, Novartis, Zolgensma, which is the most expensive personalized gene therapy for a rare childhood disorder that costs in a treatment 2.2 or 2.1 million US dollars. And now we can talk about value-based care, but when I analyze the drug development cost of Zolgensma, I saw that a biotech startup that went to phase 3 clinical trial used 75 million for creating that drug. But then it was acquired for 8.2 billion by Novartis, which is 100-fold leverage in the finance industry. So the question is, if we lower down these costs of drug development, how can we bring down the cost eventually in the therapy and avoid having discussions where people create value-based care models and tell, well, 2.1 million is still cheaper than having this child being served by social services and healthcare services, so our society will eventually save money. And I have a bit of an issue with this kind of reasoning because it feels like when I'm standing at the cliff and somebody can grab my hand, that he asks me for all my money to save my life. And I think we can do this very differently. And I'm being provocative here, I know this, but we want a discussion.
I take up one of the discussions from our participant, and Bart, it was for you. What are the fundamentals of conscious capitalism? I think that's what you're heading to in your statement.
Well, the fundamentals for me are based on, very similar based on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where there are very specific areas that are defined, which are based on fundamental rights. Like in Europe, we have a European Charter for Fundamental Rights, and in Article 35, there is written that policy should always be driven to give us the best access to healthcare. For me, if you listen to that fundamental right, that means that our policy should try to liberate as much knowledge, because otherwise you get information asymmetries, and information asymmetries leads to power centralization and leads to mostly artificial scarcity. So when you think about healthcare, being conscious is about perhaps not creating scarcity about the therapeutics itself, but perhaps creating scarcity around the experience, the good experience. Like I'm talking now through an iPhone, and Apple just went over a level of 2 trillion valuation, and their iPhone is not based on a data-driven license model or data-driven model. They are creating a great experience where everybody is willing to pay for, but I still can buy an Android which is doing similar, but they are not monetizing my data. And I think in healthcare we can create a similar new economy which is based on creating really great experiences where people tend to pay more for, but I think we need to create equity on the information or knowledge layer which is then based on diagnosis and therapeutics.